Braver Angels is a bipartisan movement that was started by a group of Democrats and Republicans after the 2016 presidential election. Our goals really are to try to increase dialogue that is civil across our political differences. The whole organization is trying to build structures in which we can really talk across the political divide so that we can be able to see that, you know what, we really do have some shared values, perhaps some common ground. Even if we don't agree, we can live respectfully.
So as April was talking about, polarization is what we're trying to target, and it's a really serious problem. If you look here, this whole thing is from the Pew Research Center, and they have been tracking how members of the two parties feel toward the other party for over 2 decades. What this is measuring is agreement by Republicans of this statement. Democrats are very unfavorable. Same thing over here, Democrats and how they view Republicans. And notice the growth from 94 all the way up here 2016. And what do you want to bet that since 2016 it's gotten worse? There are a lot of bad things that happen from polarization. We all know we've had these same experiences where some of our family members or friends, those relationships suffer because we have different viewpoints and we get into an antagonistic, conflictual kind of relationship. And sometimes it even causes the end of relationships. Another thing that happens when people grow increasingly polarized, they tend to get more extreme in their views. And the research is pretty clear that when people are extreme in their beliefs, they're more prone to be susceptible to misinformation and fake news and propaganda and things like that. Another really serious consideration is its impact on government. It's not only the citizens, it's the parties, it's the Congress, it's the government officials and politicians that grow more polarized as well. And what happens then, and we've seen this in recent years, there's a refusal to compromise on almost everything. And so what happens is things become paralyzed and we don't get our problems addressed. That gridlock on the legislative end then means that the other two branches of government, the executive and judicial, can go in and fill in that power gap. And of course, that goes precisely against the checks and balances that our founders developed when they wrote the Constitution. And then political scientists doing research in this area now are understanding more and more it's even more serious than that. It has been shown in other governments around the world that where there are democratic kinds of governments, when you have extreme polarization, the same thing happens. You know, the public institutions become ineffective, problems don't get addressed. The citizens get angry, they get frustrated, and they become vulnerable to appeals from some authoritarian personality who appeals to them because they says, I'm powerful and I'm going to kick butt and I'm going to take care of your problems. But then what happens, you get the authoritarian person in and they're more about consolidating their own power, and that's typically at the expense of the governmental institutions. And those same trends are showing up more and more all the time in America. So we may be a little bit cocky thinking we're immune to that, but we're not. So we really need to get a hold of this. That's a little bit, this is real quick, but I'm going to turn it back over to April now to talk about Braver Angels.
I think sometimes when we deal with issues that are this big, like polarization, that it's really easy to feel overwhelmed. In this case, Braver Angels has actually provided some structure for people to start getting involved and making a difference. Glenn and I even are on different sides of the political aisle, which is one of the reasons why we like to connect together, and yet we connect in ways that we focus on the relationship more than we do on any differences that we might have. And Braver Angels allows you to be able to do that. The approach that you can see there on the screen is that we work towards not trying to persuade the other person, but to really, truly try to understand where they are coming from. And that means that we have to take time to build those relationships, engage with the other, not just with the people that are just like us. This organization actually supports things like listening and recognizing our biases in order to be able to realize that we are part of the problem and we're part of the solution. We're not trying to get people to change their points of view by being aware of your biases, but trying to realize that we can be passionate, but we do need to actually think about how it is that we can be listen and be heard. At every level of leadership, we work to have equal numbers of liberal and conservatives, with the recognition that we really are trying again to develop vehicles for how we can train people on how to reduce polarization. So they have several workshops, and we're actually going to be hosting a couple of those this fall as our Central Arkansas Alliance. We think we're going to be hosting them online. At least that's what our preparation is. The whole Braver Angels organization is moving all of these workshops to be online. The skills-based workshop is developing skills in how to talk and listen to each other. The Red Blue workshop gets an equal number of Reds, Republicans, and Blues, Democrats together, and actually leads them through a whole day discussion in their like groups and then in their different groups to actually realize stereotypes of the other and be able to see what common ground you might have. The Depolarizing Within workshop is one in which you recognize your own biases that might be making it difficult to communicate with another. And then recently they've been doing monthly debates on controversial topics. And if any of you were ever in high school or college debates, they're like 2.5 hours long, and there are rules. It's very much like parliamentary procedure kind of debate. So there are many ways of getting involved. You can also go and visit their website. There is a nominal fee if you want to get access to a lot more of their resources. $12 a year is all they require to become a member. And attending events, workshops, right now there's opportunities to attend events because we're doing things virtually over Zoom with people from all over the nation. And then, of course, every single person that you come across, being able to listen and understand where they're coming from and acting individually in your interactions is one way of getting involved.